In this tutorial video, we're going to be reminded of how to use the process of completing the square to solve a quadratic equation, which means we're looking for the x-intercepts. So remember, the process of completing the square involves this b term here. So I'm going to take b, I'm going to divide it by 2, and then I'm going to square it. And that is the number that I'm going to both add and subtract in my equation to complete the square. So b is 10 divided by 2 is going to give me 5, and 5 squared is going to give me 25. So I'm going to group these first two terms together, and I'm going to stick the plus 25 minus 25 inside. I actually think I'm going to move this positive 4 over to the other side as well so that I can keep things organized. I'll have a nice easily factorable polynomial on the left, and then I'll have my constants on the right. So let me do that really quickly. I've got x squared plus 10x. I'm going to add 25, subtract 25, and I'm moving the 4 over so that it becomes negative 4. Now, I want to take this negative 25 outside of the brackets because this is the part that's actually going to help me complete the square. And remember, if you had an a value that you had factored out, you would have to multiply that negative 25 by the a value, but we didn't factor anything out, so we don't have to multiply it by anything. So I'm taking it outside the brackets, and I'm actually going to move it to the other side of the equal sign by adding 25 to both sides. So I end up with x squared plus 10x plus 25 is equal to negative 4 plus 25, and that's going to work out to be 21, so I'll just simplify that right now. Uh, 21, so good. Now I can factor this part here, and I've got my constant on the other side, which is really nice. So let's do that. I have 10x here and 25, so I want the number that adds to 10, multiplies to 25. That's 5. Oops, I wrote a 5 over here. I meant to write a 2. You 10 divided by 2, then square it. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. It's because I had the 5 in my head. And that's a number that we're going to use for our factoring. So we have x plus 5 squared, and that's equal to 21. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try and isolate x so that we can figure out what its value is going to be in order to satisfy this equation. So in order to do that, I'm going to have to square root both sides to get rid of that squared there. So I have x plus 5 is equal to the square root of 21. And then in order to move this positive 5, I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides, so I end up with getting x is equal to the square root of 21 minus 5. Now remember, the square root can either be positive or negative. So I'm actually going to add positive or negative out here. So I can take the positive square root of 21 and subtract 5. But I can also take the negative square root of 21 and subtract 5. And that's how I'm going to get my two different x values. So let's actually do that. I'll type it into my calculator and get my two x values. So let's start off with positive root 21, and I'm going to hit enter just so I have it on my calculator and it doesn't mess anything up with order of operations, and then I'm going to subtract 5, and that gives me negative 0.42. I'm going to round up, and my next one, I'm going to take the negative square root of 21, so negative root 21 into my calculator, and then I'm going to subtract 5. And that's going to give me negative 9.58. Now those are my roots to my equation there. And if you wanted to verify, you can either plug these back into your equation and make sure that it's equal to 0, or you can graph this equation and double check by using your graphing process.